The snow fell soft and heavy over Manhattan that night, coating Park Avenue in white silence. Inside the glass-walled penthouse, the smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon candles filled the air. Lauren Hayes adjusted the silverware one last time, glancing at the clock on her iPhone, 7:42 p.m. Her husband, Cole Maddox, the man she'd once believed to be her forever, was 2 hours late. He had said he was at a business dinner at the River Cafe in Brooklyn, a meeting with foreign investors. But something in his tone had felt rehearsed, too smooth. When her friend Nora texted, "I just saw Cole at the River Cafe, not alone," Lauren's hands went cold. She clicked, "Find my iPhone," their shared location still active. The small blue dot glowed over the river. The next notification almost made her drop her phone. An Instagram story from Sloane Carter, Cole's PR director. Champagne glasses clinking, Manhattan skyline glittering in the reflection, and a man's wrist, unmistakably wearing the Rolex Lauren had given Cole for their anniversary. For a moment, the world around her fell completely silent. The Christmas tree lights blinked on and off, mocking her in rhythm. Her unborn child kicked lightly beneath her ribs as if sensing her pain. She turned toward the window. The city sparkled with thousands of lights, yet inside her chest, everything dimmed. The doorbell rang. She thought maybe, just maybe, Cole had come home early. But it was a courier from Tiffany & Co., holding a small blue box. "Delivery for Mr. Maddox," he said politely. The tag read, "Merry Christmas, C. All my love, S." Lauren's eyes stung. She signed the receipt with trembling hands, then locked the box inside the safe. She picked up her Mont Blanc pen and wrote on a page torn from her planner, December 24, 8:16 p.m., Evidence 1. Her hand didn't shake anymore. It was as if her grief had hardened into something sharper purpose. She turned off the oven, wrapped the uneaten turkey in foil, and poured herself a glass of water. Not wine. Not tonight. Through the window, fireworks shimmered above Central Park, each burst illuminating her reflection in the glass calm. Pale, distant. She whispered, "Merry Christmas, Cole." Across the river, at the River Cafe, Cole raised his glass to Sloane, his mistress, toasting to new beginnings. Neither of them knew that the photo from that night, captured in the reflection of a champagne flute, would later become the weapon that ended his empire. As the clock struck midnight, Lauren placed her phone face down, the screen glowing with another message from Nora. "You don't deserve this. Come stay with me." But Lauren didn't reply. She simply whispered to herself, "No. I'm not leaving. He will." Outside, the snow fell heavier, burying the city in white silence. Inside that silence, something inside Lauren Hayes quietly snapped, and something else was born. Morning crept through the curtains, pale and cold. The Christmas lights Lauren had left on overnight blinked faintly against the gray Manhattan dawn. The once perfect penthouse kitchen was a battlefield of untouched dishes and melted candles. Lauren stood by the counter in silence, clutching her coffee mug like it was the last warm thing left in her life. The sound of the front door unlocking sliced through the stillness. Cole walked in, wearing his tailored navy coat, smelling faintly of Sloane's sharp floral perfume, the kind that clung to expensive hotel sheets. He smiled like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe. Sorry I'm late." Dinner ran long. Lauren didn't move. "Dinner with who?" He hesitated for just a second. "Investors. From Dubai. You wouldn't know them." Her gaze flicked toward his wrist. The Rolex was gone. She said nothing, just handed him a cup of black coffee. He frowned. "Where's the cream?" "We ran out." Her tone was flat, polite, mechanical. Cole drank it anyway, too busy checking his iPad for market updates. On the screen, the Bloomberg ticker scrolled red. His firm's stock was dipping. He muttered something about short sellers and PR damage. Lauren watched, thinking how effortlessly he could talk about losses worth millions while ignoring the wreckage in front of him. When he left for his shower, she unlocked his MacBook Pro and started scanning his emails. She wasn't looking for proof of the affair, she already had that. What she needed now was leverage. Her fingers trembled as she found a folder named PR Strategy, January Launch. Inside were documents detailing fake charitable donations made in her name to shield corporate funds. Her name, her social security number. A chill ran down her spine. If those numbers went public, She wouldn't just be a betrayed wife, she'd be an accomplice to fraud. She printed the files quietly and hid them in her coat pocket. Her breath came shallow. Every click of the printer felt like thunder. When Cole came out of the bathroom, steam following him, she forced a smile. "You have meetings today?" He nodded, fastening his cufflinks. "Yeah. Big week ahead. I'm going to visit Aunt Evelyn later," she said softly, almost testing him. He frowned. "Evelyn Pierce. She's toxic, Lauren. Don't go digging into old money drama." Old money drama. That was how he described her only family. Her late mother's sister. The one who'd built a quiet financial empire on Park Avenue. The same woman Lauren hadn't spoken to in 3 years, ever since Cole told her Evelyn was controlling and jealous. Now, it all made sense. Cole didn't want her near Evelyn because Evelyn knew things. About the trust. About the money Lauren had walked away from to marry him. Lauren looked down at her wedding ring, the diamond catching the morning light. She wondered how many lies it had witnessed. After Cole left, she packed a small leather bag. Inside, her mother's Cartier bracelet, the Tiffany box still sealed, and the printed evidence from his laptop. She placed her wedding ring on the counter next to the cold coffee. Her phone buzzed an unknown number. A text appeared. "Mrs. Maddox, this is Daniel Wu. Your aunt told me to call. Whatever's happening, don't sign anything. He's already trying to move your accounts." Lauren's pulse quickened. She grabbed her coat and walked out into the freezing air. Snowflakes landed on her lashes as she looked up at the skyline. The glass towers shimmered with false perfection, just like her marriage. Behind her, through the penthouse windows, she could see Cole standing by the counter, staring at the empty ring she'd left behind. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Lauren whispered to herself, "You should be afraid now," because the mirror had finally shattered, and what was coming next would cut him deeper than he ever imagined. The elevator doors opened to the 43rd floor of a sleek glass tower overlooking Park Avenue. Lauren stepped out, her breath fogging slightly from the winter air that followed her in. Everything about this office screamed power, quiet, controlled, and brutally expensive. Framed cityscapes lined the marble walls. A Mont Blanc pen rested beside every folder on the reception desk. She felt underdressed in her long beige coat and low boots. But she walked with the grace of someone who had finally decided she wouldn't bow anymore. A secretary rose immediately. "Mrs. Hayes, Miss Pierce is expecting you." Lauren nodded, clutching her leather folder. It contained copies of the forged donations and Cole's private emails. Every step toward Evelyn's office felt heavier, as if her heart were catching up with the truth she'd avoided for too long. When she entered, Evelyn Pierce didn't smile. She sat behind a massive walnut desk, gray hair pinned perfectly, Cartier glasses perched on her nose. Her aura filled the room like quiet thunder. "It's been 3 years," she said softly, her voice calm but edged. "What finally brings you here?" Lauren took a deep breath. He cheated. And he used my name in company fraud. Evelyn's expression didn't flicker. She simply gestured toward a seat. "I told you once that men like Cole Maddox don't marry, they acquire. Sit down, Lauren. Let's see what he's taken." Danny Wu entered, then a sharp, composed man in his mid-30s with kind eyes and a Starbucks cup in hand. "Aunt Evelyn told me the basics." "You brought evidence?" Lauren slid the papers across the desk. Danny's eyes widened slightly as he flipped through them. "Well," he murmured, "this is worse than I expected. He's got you listed as co-signer on multiple shell foundations. If this goes public, you'll be the headline." Lauren felt her stomach twist. "Can I clear my name?" "You can," Danny said, tapping the papers. "But you need to move fast and disappear financially before he drains everything." Evelyn leaned back, her gaze sharp. "You still have your mother's penthouse deed, yes?" Lauren nodded. "It was gifted to me before I married him. My name's the only one on it." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Then you have your first weapon. You sell it quietly. Not to cash out, but to move your assets into a protected trust." Lauren hesitated. "Sell my home?" "Sell your prison," Evelyn corrected. Danny slid his laptop open. "I can file within the hour. We'll route the funds through a charitable holding company under your maiden name. By the time Cole realizes, it'll be irreversible." Lauren exhaled shakily. If I do this, what happens next? Evelyn's voice softened, for the first time revealing warmth. Next, you learn how to fight the right way. The wealthy don't scream, Lauren. They move in silence and let the papers do the killing. Lauren looked out the floor-to-ceiling window. Park Avenue glittered below, cars streaming like veins of light. She remembered nights when Cole had brought her here for fundraisers, whispering promises about building an empire together. That empire had been built on her name. Now she'd use that same name to destroy it. Danny typed rapidly, glancing up. We'll need your signature. You'll be selling to a trust managed by Evelyn's firm, anonymous, airtight, and perfectly legal. Lauren picked up the Mont Blanc pen from the desk. Her reflection stared back from the glass tabletop, tired, pale, but alive. She signed each line without hesitation. When it was done, Evelyn placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Consider this your first clean breath in years. Lauren smiled weakly, eyes glistening. And the next step? Evelyn's gaze turned fierce again. You vanish before he realizes you've taken his foundation apart. As Lauren stepped back into the cold hallway, her phone buzzed with a message from Cole. Dinner tonight? I miss you. She looked out at the city one last time and whispered, You'll miss more than dinner. I am. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, silent, and merciless, like justice preparing to land. Lauren arrived at Evelyn's office again the next morning, the air colder, sharper, like the city itself was holding its breath. Park Avenue glittered under a sheet of thin frost. Inside, the building was warm and humming with quiet efficiency. She followed the same marble corridor, clutching the file that now represented her freedom and Cole's undoing. Evelyn looked up as Lauren entered. You didn't sleep. I couldn't, Lauren admitted. Her voice was hoarse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face at that restaurant, smiling. Evelyn handed her a glass of water. You'll stop seeing him once we take back what's yours. She opened a heavy leather folder and laid out a series of old documents. Your mother left this trust in my care. You were only 20 when it was created. It activates under one condition: betrayal. Lauren frowned. Betrayal? Yes. Evelyn's gaze softened, almost tender. Your mother knew your heart. She feared that when you loved, you'd give everything. So she built a safeguard. If any man publicly humiliates or manipulates you into emotional or financial harm, the trust releases in full. Danny entered, setting his MacBook Pro on the desk. We've verified the activation clause. Between the forged donations, the fake divorce filing, and the affair, she qualifies 3 times over. Lauren stared at the documents. How much? Evelyn adjusted her glasses. $120 million in diversified assets. Mostly green tech and sustainable development. Your mother believed in a better world, not just revenge. The number hit Lauren like a silent explosion. She felt her pulse in her throat. For years she'd lived in Cole's shadow, thinking he was the source of stability, the provider. Now she realized she'd always been the fortune, and he'd been the parasite. Danny slid a digital agreement across the screen. Sign here to transfer control to your name. And here, this will authorize the fund to invest under Hayes Ventures. Lauren hesitated. If he finds out, Evelyn interrupted, firm. He will find out. But by then, it will be too late. The paperwork is dated yesterday, notarized, and archived offshore. He can't touch a cent. Lauren picked up the stylus and signed. Her hand didn't shake this time. Evelyn leaned back, satisfied. Now comes phase 2. I want you to partner with Whitaker Holdings. They're bidding for the East River redevelopment project, green architecture, high visibility. You'll walk back into his world, not as a wife, but as competition. Lauren blinked. Whitaker? Grant Whitaker? Evelyn smiled. You remember him from your architecture days. He's been waiting for someone with your mind. He respects you, and he hates men like Cole. At that moment, the office door opened, and Grant Whitaker himself stepped in. Early 40s, sharp suit, calm authority. Lauren Hayes, he said, smiling warmly. It's been a long time. Lauren stood, startled, but steady. Grant, I didn't know you were involved. I didn't either until I heard what happened, he replied. Your designs from 5 years ago. I still use them as benchmarks. You deserve better than being someone's silent wife. Evelyn looked between them, eyes gleaming. Then it settled. Hayes Ventures will fund 30% of the redevelopment. Grant extended his hand. Welcome back, Lauren. She shook it firmly. The city skyline reflected in the window behind them, cold and perfect, like the surface of ice. When the meeting ended, Lauren stepped into the corridor, feeling something she hadn't in months control. Her phone buzzed. Cole Maddox, incoming call. She didn't answer. She simply whispered to herself, "You built your world on my name. Now, I'll build mine on your ruins." Outside, the wind howled down Park Avenue, cold, righteous, unstoppable. The next week unfolded with an eerie quietness, the kind that comes before a storm. Manhattan was still draped in post-Christmas lights, but the streets had returned to their usual rhythm, cold, fast, indifferent. From the outside, Lauren's penthouse still looked the same, perfect, polished, expensive. Inside, however, every object felt foreign now, like props from someone else's life. She walked slowly through each room, memorizing the view from every window. The skyline glittered like 1,000 lies. On the marble counter, a bowl of untouched pomegranates, Cole's favorite, had started to rot. She tossed them into the trash, the dull thuds echoing like punctuation marks at the end of a chapter. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Danny. Buyer confirmed. Discreet transfer in 48 hours. Cole won't see it until it's over. 1. Lauren stared at the message, her reflection caught in the dark phone screen. 48 hours, she whispered. She spent that day boxing up her life. The sound of tape tearing across cardboard filled the silence. Designer dresses, wedding photos, champagne glasses engraved with Forever, C, and L, all vanished into brown Amazon boxes. Every click of the tape dispenser was a small act of liberation. The real estate broker, a calm man in a gray coat, arrived later that afternoon. "We'll list it as private property transfer," he said. "The buyer is an investment trust under Miss Pierce's firm. Everything will appear routine." Lauren nodded, her voice steady. "Just make sure my husband never sees my signature until it's done." The broker gave her a sympathetic look. "You're doing the right thing." When he left, she stood alone in the empty living room, surrounded by echoes of her old life. On the wall hung a framed photo from their honeymoon in Santorini, Cole holding her waist, both smiling like actors in someone else's fairy tale. She took it down, looked at it one last time, and placed it face down in the box. As dusk fell, she made herself a cup of hot water, no tea, just the warmth. She opened the Tiffany box one final time, revealing the diamond bracelet Cole had once given her for their first anniversary. It glittered, cold, and perfect. On the underside, she noticed tiny initials she had never seen before. S.C. Sloane Carter. Her stomach dropped. The bracelet hadn't been made for her. It had been repurposed, gifted second-hand, with someone else's initials hidden beneath the clasp. The betrayal was now complete down to the jewelry on her wrist. Lauren snapped the clasp shut, placed the bracelet back in the box, and wrote a single line on the lid with a black marker. Return to sender. At midnight, the elevator opened, and 2 movers entered, quiet professionals who didn't ask questions. They wrapped the furniture, sealed the boxes, and moved swiftly under Evelyn's direction. Within an hour, the penthouse was hollow. Lauren walked through the rooms one last time. The nursery she'd started painting pale blue. The marble bathroom where she used to hum while brushing her hair. The balcony where she had once promised Cole forever. She stood there now, watching the city lights shimmer below. Her breath fogged the glass. "Goodbye," she said softly. "You can have your empire. I'll build mine." When she closed the front door, she didn't look back. The soft thud of the latch felt final. Downstairs, a sleek black town car waited. Evelyn was in the back seat, window lowered slightly. "Everything signed?" she asked. Lauren nodded, slipping into the seat. "Every signature. Every key returned." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Then it's done. You've sold the cage. Time to open the sky." As the car merged into the quiet glow of Park Avenue, Lauren turned her head for one last glimpse of the building. The top floor lights flickered, and she almost thought she saw Cole's shadow moving inside, unaware that the walls around him were no longer his. The silent sale was complete, and the countdown to his collapse had already begun. By the first week of January, New York had thawed just enough to let its noise back in. Cars honked, stock tickers flashed red, and the world seemed to hum with its usual chaos. Lauren, however, lived in silence in an apartment in Tribeca with bare walls and a single window that faced nothing but another building. It was temporary, Evelyn had said. A safe house while the transfer cleared. But peace never lasted long. That morning, her phone buzzed with 20 unread messages. Her heart tightened as she opened the first one. It was a news alert. CEO Cole Maddox seen at the Plaza Hotel with rumored fiancée Sloane Cartering spotted. The photo showed Cole's hand resting on Sloane's lower back, a diamond glittering on her finger. Lauren's stomach turned. The caption beneath read, "The city's golden couple?" Sources say Maddox's divorce was finalized quietly last week. Divorce? Quietly finalized? She hadn't signed anything. Her phone rang. It was Danny. "Don't panic," he said quickly. "Cole filed in Nevada, forged your digital signature. We caught it before it processed, but he's trying to bury the story." Lauren gripped the phone. "So the world thinks I'm gone, and he gets to start over?" "For now," Danny replied. "But it's illegal. We're freezing the case. And Evelyn's team is already moving your assets offshore." He's about to realize he's broke. Lauren hung up and sank onto the couch. Her hands trembled not from fear, but fury. For so long she'd let Cole narrate her life. Now she would rewrite the ending. Across the city, at the Plaza's Champagne Lounge, Cole and Sloane posed for cameras. Her laughter was loud, rehearsed. "It's a new beginning," she told reporters. Cole added, "I wish my ex nothing but peace." Peace. The hypocrisy made Lauren's jaw clench. Her phone buzzed again. Nora, the nurse, checking on her. "Don't read the comments, honey. People are cruel. Remember your blood pressure." "Bye." Lauren typed back, "I'm fine. I'm not broken, Nora. Just waiting." That night, Evelyn called from her office. "The story helps us," she said. "He's publicly admitted you exist. Every photo, every quote, it's all proof of emotional cruelty. Judges love paper trails." Lauren stared at the flickering light outside her window. "He's celebrating my erasure." Evelyn's voice softened. "Then we'll make sure he remembers your name the next time he signs anything." 2 days later, the fallout began. The same tabloids that crowned Sloane as the next Mrs. Maddox discovered inconsistencies in Cole's filings. A journalist from the Wall Street Journal reached out to Evelyn's office for comment. Evelyn said only one line. "Mrs. Lauren Hayes Maddox has not filed for divorce." The article hit by morning. Investors panicked. Madison Ridge Capital's stock dipped another 8%. In less than 12 hours, Cole's perfect image cracked. He called Lauren for the first time in weeks. "You did this," he hissed through the phone. "I didn't have to," she said calmly. "You did." He cursed, but she hung up before he could finish. Meanwhile, Sloane was fuming. Her PR campaign was collapsing. She'd booked an exclusive cover shoot at Harper's, now canceled because Mrs. Maddox still legally existed. She stormed out of the Plaza, paparazzi trailing her, flashing lights, exploding like gunfire. By evening, Evelyn sent Lauren a text. Cole's accounts frozen. Temporary injunction approved. Lauren stared at the message. She should have felt triumphant, but instead, she just felt tired. She looked down at her belly, resting her hand gently over the small curve. "We're almost safe," she whispered. Outside, snow began to fall again, slow and deliberate, coating the world in silence once more. And somewhere across the city, inside a luxury suite, Cole Maddox finally realized the truth. His empire wasn't being destroyed by enemies, but by the woman he thought he'd erased. Because nothing haunts a man like the silence of the woman he betrayed. The following Monday, Lauren sat in the small kitchen of her Tribeca apartment, a cup of decaf coffee growing cold in her hands. The headlines had shifted from praise to scandal in less than a week. Madison Ridge, CEO, under fire for financial irregularities. Maddox's mistress faces PR backlash after fake divorce allegations. The wolves had begun to circle, and Lauren hadn't said a single word. But silence, Evelyn had taught her, was the sharpest weapon of all. Her phone rang. The screen flashed Cole Maddox. She stared at it for several seconds before answering. "What do you want?" His voice was hoarse, defensive, almost desperate. We need to talk. You've made your point, okay? This has gone too far. Too far, she repeated quietly. You forged my signature, Cole. You sold my name to your lies. I was trying to protect the company. You don't understand what was at stake. Protect the company or protect yourself. He didn't answer right away. I just made a mistake, all right? One night, one stupid mistake. I was drunk. I didn't even. Stop, she said sharply. You weren't drunk in that photo, Cole. You were smiling. 4. He fell silent. On her end, Lauren could hear the faint echo of traffic, the sound of someone pacing. Can we meet? He asked finally. Please. I don't want lawyers. I want to fix this. Lauren stared at the gray wall in front of her. You can't fix what you burned down. Lauren, he said softly, almost a whisper. I loved you. It was strange after everything. Those words didn't sting. They sounded hollow, like a script he'd rehearsed too many times. You loved owning me, she said, and ended the call. 2 minutes later, a new message arrived. Dinner. Tomorrow. 8. The River Calf TS. No press. No lawyers. She didn't reply, but she didn't delete it either. When she told Evelyn, the older woman frowned. It's a trap. He's looking for information or leverage. Danny agreed. Record everything. Let him talk. Lauren hesitated. I don't want to humiliate him. I just want it to stop. Evelyn's gaze hardened. He didn't give you that mercy, Lauren. Remember that. The next evening, she went anyway. The River Calf looked the same as that cursed Christmas Eve night-glittering skyline. Soft jazz, white linen tables. She wore a simple black dress and no jewelry, her hair pulled back. She didn't come as a wife. She came as a witness. Cole was already there, looking exhausted. The arrogance that once defined him had been replaced by something brittle. He ordered wine, but she only asked for water. You look good, he said awkwardly. I'm pregnant, Cole, she replied flatly. Good isn't the word. He winced, leaning forward. I didn't know how to tell you. I panicked. Sloane, she's not who you think she is. She used me. Lauren almost laughed. So now you're the victim? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Fine. I screwed up. But you selling the penthouse? Freezing my accounts? That's insane. You're ruining us. There is no us, she said quietly. He looked up then, eyes bloodshot. Do you hate me that much? No, she said softly. I don't hate you. I see you. Cole blinked, confused. See me? Yes, she said. For what you really are. And that's worse than hate. He sat back, swallowing hard. You're going to regret this, Lauren. Maybe, she said, standing up. But at least I'll regret it with my own name. She turned to leave. But before she reached the door, she glanced back once. Cole was slumped over the table, staring into his wine like it held answers. When she got into the cab, Danny texted, everything recorded, clean audio, 1, cited consent, in NY, we're covered. Lauren stared out the window at the skyline reflecting off the East River. She whispered, good. Let him keep talking. Because the next time he opened his mouth, his own words would bury him alive. The first snow of February fell like powdered glass against the window of Lauren's new office in Tribeca. It wasn't much a loft converted from an old art studio with creaky floors and exposed brick, but it was hers. Her desk faced a wide window that caught the skyline at dawn. A MacBook Pro hummed quietly beside a stack of blueprints. She was designing again. Just like before Cole, before the marriage, before the lies. The project wasn't just work, it was resurrection. Hayes Urban Futures, her newly formed company, had signed a partnership with Whitaker Holdings to develop eco-friendly housing on the East River. It was ambitious, visionary, and symbolic. Rebuilding from ruins. Every meeting, every drawing, felt like taking a breath after years of suffocation. Lauren was reviewing designs when Grant Whitaker appeared in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. You're in early, he said, smiling. I don't sleep much anymore. He handed her one. Then at least caffeinate properly. She smiled faintly, sipping it. Thank you. He watched her for a moment, then said gently, I read the headlines this morning. Cole's board is calling an emergency meeting. SEC investigations are opening. You don't have to worry about him much longer. Lauren set down the cup. Worrying isn't the problem. It's waiting. Every day I wake up and wonder when the next attack will come. Grant nodded. He's unraveling, Lauren. People like him can't live without control. When they lose it, they self-destruct. She turned back to her computer. I used to think he'd destroy me. Maybe this is what karma looks like. Maybe, he said quietly. But don't mistake karma for peace. They're not the same. The day passed in quiet focus until her phone buzzed. A message from Danny. Be careful. Sloan's PR firm is leaking again stories about your mental health. They're trying to discredit you before the board meeting. Shreng, Lauren exhaled. Of course they are. Grant frowned. You can sue them. No, she said. Let them talk. They'll hang themselves with their own rope. But the attacks came fast. Within 24 hours, tabloids published claims that Lauren had emotional instability, that her pregnancy was used for sympathy. Anonymous sources said she'd been obsessively following her husband. Lauren sat in the quiet of her loft, scrolling through the venomous comments. Words blurred together: crazy, jealous, washed-up wife. For the first time in weeks, her composure cracked. Tears spilled silently down her cheeks. She pressed a hand to her belly and whispered, I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you have to feel this. Just then, her phone rang. It was Nora. Lauren, you okay? Lauren wiped her face. They're saying things I can't fight without becoming them. Nora's voice was soft but firm. Then don't fight them. Heal. Let the truth speak later. You're stronger than their noise. After the call, Lauren stood up, went to the mirror, and stared at her reflection. Her eyes were swollen, but there was something new in them: clarity. She reached for the Dior coat hanging on the rack and put it on, not as armor but as a reminder of who she'd been before everything. She walked outside into the cold evening air. Snow crunched beneath her boots. Across the river, Manhattan glowed like a promise. She whispered to herself, no more hiding. Daddy. The next morning, she arrived at the office early again. On her desk sat a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from Grant. Keep building. Some storms destroy, others clear the view. Lauren smiled, her hands steady for the first time in months. She opened her laptop, typed a new file name, Project Phoenix. Pour. Across town, Cole Maddox sat in a boardroom, surrounded by nervous executives, unaware that his wife, his supposed victim, was already rising quietly in the very city he thought he owned. Because rebirth doesn't need applause. It just needs silence and a plan. By mid-February, Manhattan had thawed just enough to reveal its dirt again: streets slushed gray, windows fogged with exhaustion, and headlines splattered with scandal. Madison Ridge Capital was under review. Cole Maddox had vanished from public view for a week, and the tabloids were beginning to whisper words like fraud, embezzlement, and SEC inquiry. Lauren sat in her Tribeca office, her laptop open, documents glowing across the screen. Danny's voice came through her AirPods, low and steady. I've been digging into the company's internal filings. You were right, Lauren, there's a fund called Ridge PR, supposedly for philanthropy, but it's just a shell. Money's been moving through it into private accounts. Guess whose name is on the filings? Lauren's stomach tightened. Mine. Yours. Danny confirmed. Cole used your social security number to make it look like you were co-signing those payments. Half the donations went to a fake foundation run by O.N. Sloan, Lauren whispered. Danny nodded. Bingo. She's been moving cash into a Cayman account under an alias. Scarlet Holdings. We can prove she and Cole both benefited. Lauren leaned back in her chair, the city light reflecting off her MacBook screen. If this goes public, he'll lose everything. Danny hesitated. It'll drag you in too, unless we plan this carefully. I don't want to destroy him, Lauren said quietly. I want justice. For me. For the truth. Danny sighed. Justice and destruction often look the same, Lauren. Just promise me one thing: don't confront him yourself. I won't, she said. But she already knew she would. That evening, Evelyn invited her to dinner at her Park Avenue apartment. The skyline glowed gold through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that had once made Lauren feel small but now only made her determined. Evelyn poured a glass of sparkling water. Danny told me about the shell accounts. We have enough to bring the board down on him like a hammer. Lauren nodded slowly. If we leak it, the company collapses. Thousands of jobs. Evelyn studied her. You still have empathy. That's good. But don't confuse empathy with mercy. Mercy is earned. Lauren's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Meet me. 10 p.m. Our place. One chance to end this before it gets worse. Cole. Evelyn saw the look in her eyes. You're not going, are you? I have to hear what he says, Lauren murmured. Evelyn shook her head. If you do, record it. Whatever happens, protect yourself. At 10 p.m., Lauren stood outside the penthouse she no longer owned. Snow drifted through the light like falling ash. Cole opened the door, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. You came, he said, almost relieved. I came to listen, she said. He poured whiskey into 2 glasses. You don't understand what's happening. Sloane, she's gone rogue. She's threatening to leak documents. If this gets out, I go to prison. Lauren didn't flinch. Then tell the truth. He laughed bitterly. Truth doesn't save people like me. It kills us. Then die honest, she said. He slammed the glass down. You think you're better than me? You've been living off my money for years. Her eyes flashed. Your money was my inheritance, Cole. You just spent it for me. He stared at her, realization dawning like dawn through smoke. Your aunt, the sale. You set me up. No, she said softly. You set yourself up. I just stopped protecting you. He took a shaky breath. If I fall, you fall too. Every document has your name. Lauren's voice didn't tremble. Not anymore. The real files show who moved the money. You signed them, Cole. With Sloane, his face drained of color. How? Because I finally learned from the best, she said, turning to leave. He didn't follow. He just stood there, watching the door close on everything he'd ever owned. By the time Lauren reached the elevator, her phone buzzed. Danny's message read, We've got it all, transfers, emails, signatures. SEC will have it by morning. Lauren looked at her reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls, no longer the fragile woman who'd once believed in forever. She smiled faintly and whispered, Let's see what happens when dirty money meets clean hands. The city woke to chaos. The Wall Street Journal broke the story at dawn. CEO Cole Maddox under federal investigation for fraudulent foundations. Within hours, his company's stock plummeted 14%. Reporters camped outside Madison Ridge Capital's glass tower on Park Avenue. The same door that once opened for senators and investors now slammed shut against flashing cameras and angry shareholders. Lauren watched it all unfold on her iPad as she sat in her Tribeca loft, her unborn child turning gently beneath her ribs. The world was watching him crumble, and for once, she didn't feel guilt. Only calm. Her phone rang. Danny's voice came quick and sharp. It's working. The SEC's moving faster than expected. His accounts are frozen. But brace yourself, his PR team is spinning this hard. They're painting you as the bitter wife who leaked the files. Lauren exhaled slowly. Let them. They need someone to blame. They might do more than blame, Danny warned. Sloane's going live tonight on Glamour Talk TV. She's calling it her truth hour. We don't know what she'll say. Lauren looked out the window. Snow drifted lazily through the city lights. Let her talk. Every lie she tells will have a date and a file to disprove it. By evening, Evelyn arrived, perfectly composed in a gray cashmere coat. We need to get ahead of this, she said, setting her leather bag on the table. You're not going to hide. You'll attend the gala tomorrow, Whitaker Holdings charity event. Every power player in Manhattan will be there. You'll walk in not as the wounded wife, but as Hayes Ventures, the woman who sold her house and built an empire. Lauren hesitated. Won't that look like revenge? Evelyn's eyes gleamed. No, dear. It will look like rebirth. That night, Lauren sat alone, scrolling through social media. Sloane appeared on TV, tears glistening perfectly under studio lights. I didn't know Cole was still married, she said, voice trembling. He told me it was over. I was manipulated too. Then, as if on cue, she lifted her hand wearing the diamond ring Cole once promised Lauren was custom-made. Pardon. The next image on the screen froze Lauren's breath. A slideshow flashed behind Sloane. Candid photos of Cole and Lauren, cropped cruelly, captioned, "The marriage that broke him." Lauren's phone exploded with messages. "Are you okay? You should respond." But she didn't. Instead, she opened a file Evelyn had sent earlier, a scanned letter from her late mother, part of the trust documents. "My girl," it read, "if you are ever betrayed, remember this. Dignity is the quiet form of revenge. Let your silence outlive their noise." Lauren closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and smiled for the first time in weeks. The next day, the Ritz-Carlton ballroom shimmered under 1,000 crystal lights. Paparazzi lined the entrance, expecting Cole and Sloane. But when the black Mercedes pulled up, it was Lauren who stepped out. She wore a simple Dior gown, black velvet that framed her like armor. Her hair was loose, her posture perfect. Flashbulbs exploded as murmurs rippled through the crowd. "That's Lauren Maddox. She came? She looks unstoppable." Inside, the whispers followed her like perfume. Grant Whitaker greeted her at the door with a proud smile. "You made it. Was there ever a doubt?" She replied softly. Halfway through the evening, Cole arrived. Disheveled, eyes hollow, tie loose. His appearance drew a sharp wave of gasps. The golden couple was broken, their roles reversed under the chandeliers. Lauren didn't approach him, didn't speak, didn't even look in his direction. She didn't have to. Cameras caught it all, the woman he'd humiliated standing tall while he floundered in shame. Later, as reporters begged for a quote, Lauren finally spoke, her voice calm, steady, almost kind. "I have nothing to say about my past," she said. "But I have everything to build for my future. Bye." And as the flashes lit up the room, Cole's reflection flickered in the mirrored wall, shattered, shrinking, and forever haunted by the woman who no longer needed his name. The morning after the gala, headlines painted the city gold with Lauren's name. Lauren Hayes Maddox stuns at Ritz-Carlton Gala. From betrayal to billionaire, the comeback of the year. Every article praised her composure, her silence, her poise. They didn't know the storm still brewing underneath. By noon, the door to her Tribeca loft buzzed. Danny was there, coat dusted with snow, his expression grave. "You might want to sit down," he said, setting his briefcase on the table. Lauren frowned. "What now?" He opened his laptop and spun it toward her. On the screen was a message from an encrypted address. It contained photos, screenshots of her trust activation, private contracts, bank routing details. At the bottom, a message in red font. "Pay $5 million or the world learns your fortune was triggered by infidelity revenge." Lauren stared at the screen, pulse rising. Who sent this? Danny's jaw tightened. "We traced the metadata. It's Sloane. She's desperate. After last night, Cole's completely isolated. And her name's mud in the PR world. She wants to drag you into the scandal." Evelyn joined via video call from her office, elegant and controlled as ever. "Ignore it," she said. "Blackmailers feed on fear." Lauren nodded slowly but couldn't ignore the nausea curling in her stomach. "She'll go public anyway, even if I don't pay." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll make sure when she does, no one believes her." That night, as snow started again, Lauren found herself pacing. The old anxiety clawed back years of gaslighting, of being made to doubt her own worth. She finally stopped, hands pressed to her stomach. "I promised peace," she whispered to her unborn child. "Not war." But peace was expensive, and lies were cheap. The next day, Sloane Carter held a press conference outside the Plaza Hotel. Cameras flashed as she stepped forward, wrapped in a red coat, crocodile tears glistening. "I'm here to speak the truth," she began. Lauren Hayes activated a trust by falsely claiming infidelity. She's exploiting legal loopholes to fund her revenge. Lauren watched the broadcast from her office, jaw tightening. Grant Whitaker, seated across from her, shook his head. "She's hanging herself. Every word she says can be disproved with timestamps and witnesses." Danny burst in minutes later, waving a file. "Guess what? We found her weak point. The photos she's leaking, they were stolen from an internal company server. Federal offense. She's not exposing you. She's incriminating herself. Lauren exhaled, her composure returning. Then let's not stop her. Let her finish the show. Too dead? By evening, Sloane was everywhere: talk shows, gossip blogs, podcasts. She painted Lauren as a calculating manipulator. But with every interview, new contradictions emerged. Dates didn't align. Claims didn't match public records. Online, the tide turned swiftly. Sloanleys began trending by midnight. Evelyn called with a tone that sounded almost amused. You see, dear, letting fools speak long enough is the most elegant form of justice. Cole, however, wasn't laughing. He called Lauren past midnight, voice trembling with rage. You think you've won? You think they won't turn on you next? You made me a villain. You made yourself one, she replied calmly. He lowered his voice. You think that baby will save you. You're not the only one with secrets. For the first time, a flicker of real fear crossed her face. What are you talking about? But he hung up. The next morning, a manila envelope arrived at her office with no return address. Inside were medical forms from Lenox Hill Hospital falsified, claiming Lauren's pregnancy was a lie. A note on top read, "The truth always surfaces." Lauren sank into her chair, fury mixing with disbelief. Cole had crossed a new line, attacking her motherhood, her integrity, her very body. She clenched her fists, whispering, "You wanted a war. Now you'll have one." And for the first time, the fire in her eyes wasn't pain, it was purpose. 3 days after Sloane's disastrous press tour, Manhattan buzzed with rumors. Investors whispered, board members panicked, and every business channel replayed Cole Maddox's red-eyed denials on loop. Madison Ridge Capital, once the crown jewel of Park Avenue, was now radioactive. Lauren sat in her office at Hayes Ventures, watching it all unfold on her MacBook. She should have felt vindicated, but she didn't. She felt unfinished. Cole's last call haunted her: the threat, the lies, the forged hospital forms. It wasn't just cruelty anymore. It was war. Danny entered, holding a legal folder. "You're going to want to see this." Lauren looked up. "What is it now?" He dropped the folder on her desk. "A transcript from yesterday's emergency board meeting. One of my contacts leaked it." Lauren opened it, scanning the pages. Cole's name appeared over and over. Every line a new fracture in his empire. Unauthorized transfers. PR funds unaccounted. Risk exposure beyond control. Danny read aloud. "They're turning on him. 2 board members have already resigned. The rest are calling for his removal." Lauren closed the folder slowly. "He'll fight back." "He's already fighting," Danny said grimly. "He blamed you for the leaks, said you hacked his system out of revenge." Lauren leaned back, her jaw tightening. Classic Cole. Blame the woman who knows too much. Mayball. Before Danny could reply, Evelyn's voice came through on speakerphone. "Lauren, dear, we've been invited to the next board session. The interim chairman wants your input on stabilizing the East River project funding." Lauren blinked. "You're saying they want me in the same room with him?" "Yes," Evelyn said, calm and calculated. "This is your moment, not revenge vindication. He'll see what he threw away sitting at the same table, holding the power he thought he owned." Jen. That afternoon, Lauren put on a charcoal gray suit and her mother's Cartier bracelet. Grant offered to accompany her, but she shook her head. "This one's mine." The boardroom at Madison Ridge Capital was a shrine to arrogance: glass walls, polished oak table, a skyline view that made people forget their conscience. Cole was already there, flanked by lawyers. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You don't belong here," he said quietly. Lauren took her seat opposite to him. "Neither do you, apparently." The chairman cleared his throat. "Let's begin. Mr. Maddox, your leadership is under review." Mrs. Hayes. Miss Hayes was invited as a consultant on ethical restructuring, given her new firm's reputation for transparency. Cole's jaw flexed. "She's not a consultant. She's my ex-wife. She has an agenda." Lauren folded her hands. "My only agenda is the truth. Something you've never been able to afford." Gasps fluttered across the room. Cole stood abruptly, but his lawyer tugged him back down. "You're walking a fine line, Lauren." "So are you," she replied. The chairman continued, reading off figures. "Our auditors found evidence of falsified donations routed through PR accounts. Signatures verified to you. Mr. Maddox. That's impossible, Cole snapped. Those were approved by the .com. By you. Lauren interrupted softly, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were screenshots, timestamps, and his voice from the recorded dinner. The boardroom fell silent except for the soft hum of the city below. Cole's face drained of color. You recorded me? Lauren met his gaze. New York is a one-party consent state, remember? He turned toward the window, running a trembling hand through his hair. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done, she said. I've stopped you. The chairman leaned forward. Effective immediately, Cole Maddox is suspended pending federal investigation. The board will vote on permanent removal next week. Lauren stood. Meeting adjourned. The chairman nodded. As she walked toward the door, Cole called after her, voice breaking. You think you won, Lauren? You haven't. You'll never be free of me. She paused, glancing back once. Maybe not. But at least now, the world knows who you are. Outside, the winter wind cut through Park Avenue. Lauren buttoned her coat and took a deep breath. Inside that glass tower, the empire Cole built on deceit had finally begun to crack, and the woman he underestimated was holding the hammer. That night, after the boardroom battle, Lauren returned to her apartment exhausted but strangely weightless. For the first time in years, she could breathe without fear of what waited behind her. The city lights blinked outside like 1,000 beating hearts alive, relentless, indifferent. Evelyn was already there, sitting by the window with a small velvet box in her lap. You handled yourself well today, she said, her voice a blend of pride and melancholy. Your mother would have been proud. Lauren smiled faintly. She always believed I'd be strong. I just didn't think it would take this much pain to prove her right. Evelyn held out the velvet box. This came from the bank today. It was in the trust vault, sealed with her handwriting. Lauren hesitated before opening it. Inside was a letter, aged but pristine, folded neatly over a small silver key. Her mother's handwriting swept across the paper in the same elegant curves Lauren remembered from childhood. She unfolded it slowly, her pulse catching at the first line. My dearest Lauren, if you're reading this, it means your heart has been broken by someone who mistook your kindness for weakness. Lauren's breath trembled. I know you. You forgive too easily. You believe love can fix what power destroys. But I built this trust not for revenge, my darling girl. It was to remind you that you were always enough. The money is not your weapon. It's your shield. Build something from it. Something that lasts. By the time she reached the end, tears blurred the words. The letter continued. You will be tempted to fight fire with fire. Don't. Stand taller. Let dignity be the loudest sound in the room. The world doesn't remember who shouted it, remembers who survived. 5. Lauren folded the paper back into the box, her tears falling silently onto the velvet lining. For years, she had been searching for her mother's voice in memory. Now it was speaking to her directly from the past. Evelyn reached over and touched her hand gently. She knew exactly who you'd become. Lauren looked down at the silver key. What's this for? Evelyn smiled softly. Her storage unit in Hudson Valley. She kept things she didn't want your father, or later, anyone to find. You'll understand when you go. Lauren brushed her thumb over the key, feeling its cool weight. I don't even know what I'd say to her if she were here. Evelyn looked out at the city. You don't have to say anything, Lauren. You're living the answer she prayed for. Later that night, Lauren sat alone at her desk, reading the letter again. Each sentence felt like a thread stitching her back together. She lit a candle, whispering, Thank you, Mom, for saving me even from the grave. Ty. Her phone buzzed. Grant Whitaker. You still awake? He texted. She smiled faintly. Barely. Long day. You made history. The city's talking about you. Want me to pick you up for the ground inspection tomorrow? She hesitated, then typed back. Sure. Morning's fine. Before going to bed, she placed the letter in a frame on her nightstand, beside the ultrasound photo of her baby. The candlelight flickered across both past and future, side by side. Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining. Somewhere downtown, Cole sat alone in his office, the silence deafening, the walls closing in. Lauren didn't know it yet, But the letter wasn't just closure, it was a map. The key would lead her to one final truth her mother had hidden, a truth that would change the game entirely. She turned off the light, resting her hand on her belly. "We're almost there," she whispered. And for the first time, she dreamed not of revenge or fear, but of tomorrow. The morning after Lauren read her mother's letter, Manhattan felt unnaturally bright, the kind of winter sunlight that reveals everything you'd rather stay hidden. Lauren met Grant outside the East River construction site, hard hat in hand, bundled in a long wool coat. The wind cut sharp, but she didn't feel it. She was alive again, focused, steady, unstoppable. Grant smiled as she approached. "You're early." "Par. Old habits," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear. "I used to wait up for him every night. Now I just wake up before the Sunday." He laughed softly, then handed her a tablet showing the new development plans. "The board's ready to approve the final blueprint. You're changing the skyline, Lauren." Literally. Before she could respond, her phone vibrated. It was Nora. The nurse's voice crackled through the line, urgent. "Lauren, don't panic. But there's something you need to see. It's about Sloane." Lauren stepped aside, frowning. "What happened?" "She's on social media again, posted a sonogram photo, claiming she's pregnant. She tagged Cole." Lauren froze. "Pregnant?" "Fake," Nora said quickly. "The image is from Lenox Hill's database. I recognized it. It's one of our archive templates. She edited the patient name, but not the metadata. She just committed digital fraud, and if Cole endorses it publicly, he's finished." Lauren's mind raced. "Send me everything. Timestamp, file ID, all of it." Grant watched as she hung up, his brow furrowed. "Trouble?" "Opportunity," she said quietly. By noon, page 6 had exploded. Maddox and Carter expecting first child amid corporate scandal. The headline trended for hours. Cameras swarmed the plaza, where Sloane posed dramatically on the steps, clutching her stomach like a tragic heroine. Cole, desperate to save face, released a statement. "Yes, Sloane and I are expecting. I look forward to this next chapter of life." The response was immediate and vicious. Within hours, Nora's evidence reached Evelyn, who forwarded it to a federal contact. The sonogram's metadata proved the file was fake, stolen directly from Lenox Hill's system. It was medical fraud, a felony. By evening, the story turned. FBI probes fake pregnancy claim by PR director Sloane Carter. Maddox implicated in potential health record breach. Lauren sat in her office, watching the chaos unfold live on TV. Grant leaned against her desk, arms crossed, a slow grin spreading across his face. He did this to himself. "I just let gravity do the rest," she murmured. Then her phone buzzed, a private number. She hesitated, then answered. Cole's voice was strained, half anger, half fear. "You think this is funny? They're raiding my office, Lauren. I'm being accused of hacking hospital records." "How?" "Maybe you should have been more careful who you trusted," she said coolly. "This isn't me. She did it. Sloane's insane. She set me up." Lauren's voice stayed calm. But inside, she could hear the poetic symmetry of it all. "Then maybe now you know how it feels." He fell silent, then whispered, "I'm ruined." She didn't reply. The line went dead. Across the city, Cole watched agents carry boxes of documents from his office. Reporters shouted his name, cameras flashing like gunfire. Sloane was nowhere to be found, her phone disconnected, her apartment empty. By midnight, news broke that she had fled to Los Angeles. A warrant was being prepared. Evelyn called Lauren with satisfaction in her voice. "The dominoes fell perfectly, my dear. You didn't have to push a single one." Lauren stood by the window, looking out at the skyline. "No," she said softly. "He built them too close together." Sure. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, honest smile, not of revenge, but release. Somewhere across the city, Cole Maddox sat alone in a hotel suite, his empire in ashes, his name smeared across every screen. Lauren whispered to the night, "You thought power made you untouchable. You were wrong. Truth doesn't need power, it only needs time." And time, finally, was on her side. February's chill bit deep, but the Ritz-Carlton ballroom glowed with gold. Chandeliers shimmered over crystal tables, violins hummed softly, and New York's elite floated through the room like they owned time itself. For the first time in months, Lauren felt the calm before a new chapter, not the hollow calm of surrender, but the stillness before triumph. Grant walked beside her through the marble foyer, tuxedo crisp, charm effortless. "Ready?" he asked. Lauren nodded, smoothing her black satin Dior gown. The Cartier bracelet on her wrist caught the light. "As I'll ever be." Outside, the red carpet was chaos, reporters calling names, flashes popping. Evelyn had orchestrated everything. No interviews, no comments, just presence. "A queen never explains herself," she'd said. Lauren stepped from the car. The crowd stilled for a heartbeat, then gasped. Cameras turned in a wave of light. She walked slowly, deliberate, her hand resting lightly on her stomach. In that moment, the narrative shifted from scandal to strength, from gossip to power. Inside the ballroom, conversations hushed as she entered. Even among Manhattan's royalty, she stood apart. The woman Cole Maddox had betrayed now walked as the embodiment of grace under ruin. Grant leaned close and whispered, "He's here." Across the room, Cole stood by the bar. Disheveled but still clinging to his tailored arrogance, he looked smaller than she remembered. His eyes flicked toward her. And for a moment, disbelief clouded his face. He hadn't expected her to show up. Lauren didn't look away. She smiled calm, unreadable, devastating. Reporters hovered nearby, snapping photos. Someone whispered, "She's glowing." Another murmured, "That's what peace looks like." Evelyn appeared at Lauren's side, radiant in silver. Perfect timing. "The Whittaker announcement starts in 5. Lauren nodded, steady. Grant took the stage, microphone in hand. "Tonight, we celebrate more than a project," he said. "We celebrate rebirth. A city rebuilding itself, and a woman whose vision made that possible." The spotlight turned. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new partner of Whittaker Holdings, Miss Lauren Hayes." Applause thundered. Cameras flashed like lightning. Cole froze mid-drink, his glass trembling. Lauren walked to the stage, each step deliberate. She reached the podium, looked out over the glittering crowd, and spoke softly, but her voice carried. "Rebuilding isn't about revenge," she said. "It's about remembering who you were before someone tried to rewrite you. We've all been broken, betrayed, or underestimated. But we're not defined by what destroyed us. We're defined by what we build afterward." For a moment, the room was silent. Then applause rose again, genuine and thunderous. Cole set his glass down too hard. The stem cracked, spilling whiskey onto the tablecloth. People turned. The humiliation spread like ripples on water. Lauren stepped down from the stage, composed. Grant met her halfway, his smile warm but restrained. "You just burned him alive without touching a match," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "Fire's overrated. I prefer light." As the night unfolded, Cole tried to approach her. Security, briefed by Evelyn, intercepted him before he could get close. "Miss Hayes isn't taking visitors tonight," they said firmly. He watched helplessly as she laughed with donors, journalists, and investors, the same crowd that once bowed to him. The empire had shifted its allegiance. Later, as the event wound down, Lauren stood on the balcony overlooking Central Park. Snowflakes drifted through the city lights, settling on her shoulders like ash. Grant joined her, holding 2 champagne flutes. "To new beginnings," he said. She touched her glass to his. "And to endings that deserve to happen." Far below, Cole stumbled out of the hotel alone, cameras flashing like fireflies around him. Lauren turned away from the window. Her reflection in the glass was no longer the fragile woman she once was. It was steel, steady, and serene. For the first time, she didn't feel like she'd survived his world. She'd outgrown it. The morning after the gala, the newspapers told the story Lauren had silently waited for. Cole Maddox ousted as CEO following federal review. Lauren Hayes, the woman who walked away and won. Her face appeared on business covers, the tagline beneath reading, "The architect of her own comeback." Yoti, but behind the polished headlines, a final confrontation still waited to unfold. At noon, Danny called. He requested a private meeting. He says it's about settlement terms. Lauren's tone didn't waver. "Where?" "His old office. He has 24 hours to vacate." Evelyn, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow. "You don't owe him a second of your time." "I know," Lauren said softly. "But I owe myself closure." Tangit. By evening, she walked through the revolving doors of Madison Ridge Capital one last time. The building felt hollow now. No bustling assistants, no polished investors, just echoes. Cole's corner office was stripped bare, the city spread out behind him like a painting he no longer owned. He turned when she entered. His face was drawn, the arrogance drained out, replaced by something darker: regret, maybe, or the ache of realizing the show was finally over. "You came," he said quietly. "5 minutes," she replied. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Sit, please. I just want to talk." She didn't sit. "Say what you need to say." Cole rubbed his temples, eyes fixed on the skyline. "You won. Congratulations, you got the board, the investors, the sympathy. But I need you to know something. I never meant to hurt you." Lauren let out a hollow laugh. "That's the anthem of every man who does." "I'm serious," he said, voice cracking. "I lost everything. My career, my reputation. Sloane's gone. My accounts are frozen, and my name's poison in every room I walk into. You built that yourself." He looked at her, pleading. "Can't you at least admit we had something real?" For a moment, silence stretched between them. The city lights reflected in the window behind him, flickering across the glass like ghosts. "Yes," she said finally. "We had something real. But real doesn't always mean right." He slumped back in his chair, defeated. "So that's it? You walk away with your billions and your clean conscience while I rot?" Lauren stepped closer, calm and composed. "You'll survive. Men like you always do. But the difference is, you'll have to live with the truth." He frowned. "What truth?" "That you never broke me. You taught me to build without you." He looked away, shame and bitterness warring in his eyes. "I loved you, Lauren." "No," she said gently. "You loved control. You just called it love because it sounded prettier." She placed an envelope on the desk. "This is the settlement. I've waived all claims against your assets. Keep what's left of your dignity, Cole. I don't want your money. I just want distance." He looked up sharply. "You're not even taking damages?" "I don't need blood money," she said. "I have something better, peace." He stared at her, eyes glassy. "I don't deserve forgiveness." "You're right," she said, "but forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me." She turned toward the door. Behind her, she heard him exhale shakily, the sound of a man realizing the final chapter had been written without his permission. Before leaving, she paused by the glass wall, looking out at the skyline, the same view he once told her would belong to them forever. "Goodbye, Cole," she said softly. "You were the storm. I just learned how to build after the rain." Teinber. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Cole sank into his chair, staring at the envelope she'd left, a symbol of mercy he'd never understand. Lauren stepped out into the crisp night air, the city lights glowing gold against the black sky. The empire had fallen, but its ashes had built her crown. 2 weeks after the final meeting, winter began to loosen its grip on Manhattan. But the storm that had swallowed Cole Maddox's empire was still raging, this time in court. The courtroom on Center Street buzzed with reporters, flashes, and the constant murmur of spectators hungry for a fall. It wasn't every day that a Wall Street darling faced charges of corporate fraud, forgery, and obstruction. Lauren sat quietly at the plaintiff's table beside Danny, her hands folded neatly over her stomach. She wasn't here for revenge, she was here for truth. Across the aisle, Cole looked like a ghost of his former self. The designer suits had been traded for a simple navy one. The Rolex was gone. His eyes darted from the judge to Lauren, as if hoping she'd still save him somehow. The judge, a woman with a sharp voice and sharper eyes, began reading the summary. "Mr. Maddox, evidence presented shows willful misappropriation of charitable funds, falsification of legal documents, and coercion of a spouse for personal gain. Do you understand the gravity of these charges?" Cole's lawyer answered for him. "Yes, Your Honor." Lauren didn't move. She'd spent years listening to Cole twist words into weapons today. She wouldn't give him any reaction to feed on. The prosecution played the audio recording from the River Caf. Cole's voice filled the courtroom, calm, arrogant, damning. You don't understand, Lauren. I did what I had to do. They'd never find out if you just kept quiet. The silence afterward was heavy. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cole's lawyer objected, claiming it was taken out of context, but the judge overruled. Next came the paper trail: bank transfers, forged filings, fake charitable donations. Danny whispered, "We've got him cornered." Lauren's eyes stayed on Cole. He wasn't angry anymore, just hollow, like a man watching his reflection disappear. When the defense called him to the stand, he tried to play the martyr. "I made mistakes," he said, voice cracking perfectly for effect. "But I was under pressure. I built a company from nothing. I never intended to hurt Lauren. I loved her." Lauren's lawyer rose. "Mr. Maddox, did you love her when you used her name to commit tax fraud? When you forged her signature? When you left her home on Christmas Eve to dine with your mistress?" Cole's face flushed. "That's not fair." "Fair?" the lawyer snapped. "Fair was never your concern. Control was." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Cole looked toward Lauren again. But she didn't look away this time. Her gaze was steady, cold, final. By afternoon, the verdict was clear. Guilty on all primary counts. Sentencing postponed for review, but conviction confirmed. The judge's closing words echoed like a benediction. "Mr. Maddox, power without conscience always destroys itself. Consider this your education." Reporters rushed toward Lauren as she exited the courthouse. "Miss Hayes, any comment?" She paused at the top of the steps, sunlight breaking through the clouds behind her. For a moment, she thought of her mother's letter. Dignity is the quiet form of revenge. Lauren smiled faintly. "No comment," she said. Justice already spoke. Grant was waiting at the car, offering his hand to help her in. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Better than I've ever been." As the car pulled away, she looked back through the window. Cole stood surrounded by cameras, flashes illuminating his pale face. It was strange. She didn't feel triumphant, only clean, like she had finally rinsed the last trace of him from her soul. She turned to Danny and said quietly, "You know what's ironic? He always told me I wasn't strong enough for his world. Turns out his world couldn't survive mine." Outside, Manhattan roared on, indifferent and alive. For the first time, Lauren Hayes wasn't someone's wife or victim or story. She was her own verdict, her own redemption, her own headline. A week after the verdict, Manhattan exhaled. The gossip headlines shifted to new scandals. The camera crews packed up. And for the first time in months, Lauren walked the streets without people whispering her name. Winter sunlight spilled over the city like a slow forgiveness. She took a train north, out of the glass towers and into quiet air. Her destination, the Hudson Valley storage unit Evelyn had mentioned, the one her mother's silver key opened. The ride was long, the landscape turning from steel to snow-dusted trees. She pressed her palm against her belly, feeling the tiny flutter of life within. "We're going to see Grandma," she whispered with a small smile. When she arrived, the manager handed her a clipboard. "Been waiting years for this key," he said. "Unit 47, back left." Inside, the light flickered on to reveal boxes stacked neatly, untouched by time. The air smelled faintly of cedar and memory. Lauren's fingers brushed over labels written in her mother's handwriting. Blueprints, personal letters, investments. She opened the first box and gasped softly. Inside were framed photos of her mother at construction sites, steel beams, green rooftops, city plans. Each blueprint bore a familiar name at the corner. Whitaker Holdings, Environmental Division. Her throat tightened. Her mother had once worked for Grant's father. These weren't random keepsakes. They were the foundation of everything Lauren was building now. Underneath the papers was another envelope, sealed and yellowed with age. Her name was written in soft ink. "To my daughter, for when she learns to rebuild." She opened it carefully. "Lauren, the world will tell you that power belongs to men who speak louder. It doesn't. Real power is silent. It's in the way you endure, adapt, and create. I built something with Whitaker years ago, something meant to last. And now it belongs to you." Beneath the letter was a folder stamped property certificate. Lauren unfolded it with trembling hands. It was a deed 22% equity in Whitaker Holdings, transferred through an unlisted family trust. She read it twice, hardly believing. Her mother had left her not just protection, but a legacy. By the time she drove back to the city, twilight had fallen. Evelyn met her at the door of her office, concern turning quickly into awe as Lauren handed her the documents. "My God," Evelyn murmured. "Do you realize what this means? You're one of the largest shareholders now. You don't just work with Whitaker, you own a part of it." Lauren smiled through tears. "She knew I'd find it when I was ready to stand on my own." Grant arrived minutes later, out of breath from rushing. Evelyn called. "Is it true?" Lauren nodded, showing him the letter. "Your father partnered with her years ago. She helped design the first green housing models. She believed cities could heal." Grant's expression softened. "And now you're finishing what she started." Lauren laughed lightly. "I guess rebuilding runs in the family." He studied her, admiration flickering in his eyes. "You know, most people would take revenge and disappear. But you turned destruction into a foundation." She looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline. "That's what architects do," she said. "We don't erase ruins. We build around them." That night, she visited her mother's grave in the quiet snow. She placed the old silver key beside the headstone and whispered, "You built me to survive, but you also built me to rise. I finally understand." The wind rustled through the trees like an answer. As Lauren walked back toward the car, her phone buzzed a news alert. Madison Ridge Capital officially declared bankrupt. All assets liquidated. She didn't even open the article. Some endings didn't need revisiting. She glanced once more at the dark horizon. From ashes, she had built a legacy, and from betrayal, she had built fire. Spring came early to New York that year. The snow melted into streams that glistened along the sidewalks, and the city began to bloom again, as if it too were ready to start over. For Lauren Hayes, the season marked the first time in years she felt unafraid of her own reflection. Her face now graced the cover of Forbes. Lauren Hayes, from betrayal to billion-dollar visionary. The article called her the architect of healing cities. Yet, for Lauren, the victory wasn't the wealth, it was peace, finally earned. She stood before the newest building on Fifth Avenue, the Hayes Green Urban Center. The glass fade shimmered beneath the morning light, designed with her mother's original blueprints, the ones she had found in the Hudson Valley storage unit. Inside, eco-tech labs and affordable housing offices worked together, bridging worlds that had once felt unreachable. Grant joined her on the steps, his tailored suit immaculate, but his smile warm. "She'd be proud of you," he said softly. Lauren looked up at the rooftop garden. "She's in every brick," she replied. She believed the city could heal people. Now it finally does. Reporters gathered below, waiting for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Evelyn stood beside the podium, radiant as ever. "Are you ready, my dear?" Lauren nodded. More than ready. As she approached the microphone, flashes burst across the plaza. Her voice, calm and sure, carried easily through the morning air. "For years, I lived in silence. I thought dignity meant staying quiet. But dignity isn't silence, it's strength. This building isn't about what I lost. It's about what I refused to let die. Hope." Applause rolled through the crowd like a wave. The ribbon fell, the cameras clicked, and the city seemed to exhale with her. Later that afternoon, she walked through the finished halls alone. The scent of new paint mixed with the faint sweetness of jasmine drifting from the rooftop greenhouse. Each detail, every beam, every pane held a story. In the main lobby, a plaque was mounted on marble. It read, "Dedicated to Margaret Hayes, who taught her daughter to build even after the storm." Lauren traced her fingers over the words. Her throat tightened, but her smile didn't falter. "Mom," said a young intern, approaching nervously, "there's a visitor outside asking for you." Lauren turned. "Who?" The intern hesitated. "Mr. Maddox." The name struck the air like a dropped stone. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Lauren walked to the glass doors. Outside, Cole stood on the sidewalk in a wrinkled suit, thinner, smaller, the city moving past him without notice. His eyes met hers through the glass, pleading silently for acknowledgement. She stepped closer but didn't open the door. He mouthed something. "I'm sorry." She nodded once. Not in forgiveness, but in finality. Then she turned away. Cole remained there for a few seconds, watching her disappear into the building that bore her name. When he finally walked off into the crowd, no one recognized him. The man who once ruled Park Avenue was now just another shadow swallowed by the city. Inside, Lauren took the elevator to the top floor. The view stretched wide across Central Park, sunlight bouncing off the windows of the Plaza Hotel, the same skyline she once watched through tears. Grant entered quietly, setting a cup of Starbucks coffee beside her. "You did it," he said. Lauren looked out at the city, her city. "We did it," she corrected. From below, the plaza buzzed with life, children, workers, laughter. The noise of rebuilding, not destruction. She touched the small bump of her belly, now nearly showing. "You'll never know what fear feels like here," she whispered. On Fifth Avenue, where she had once stood broken, Lauren Hayes now stood unshakable, the woman who turned betrayal into blueprint and ruin into rebirth. A year passed. The city had changed, and so had Lauren. Winter returned to Manhattan, softer this time, less cruel, less lonely. The streets of Fifth Avenue shimmered beneath Christmas lights, and snow drifted down like feathers over the city she had rebuilt piece by piece. Inside the Hayes Green Urban Center, the atrium glowed with gold light. Volunteers wrapped gifts for local children, and carol music echoed softly through the glass halls. Lauren stood by the towering tree in the center, watching a little girl tie a ribbon around a box. The scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air, and for the first time since that terrible night years ago, Christmas felt like peace again. Grant approached from behind, holding 2 cups of cocoa. "You're glowing," he said with a grin. She laughed quietly. "It's probably the tree." "No," he said softly, handing her a cup. "It's you." Lauren looked around the room, the volunteers laughing, the warmth spreading, the city outside blanketed in white, and felt something deeper than triumph. It wasn't victory anymore, it was stillness, healing. "I used to think I'd never have another Christmas that meant anything," she said, her voice steady but wistful. "But I was wrong." Grant smiled. "You just needed to write your own version." They stood in silence for a while, watching children play near the glowing lobby windows. Then Nora appeared, her nurse's uniform under a red scarf, holding a tiny blue blanket in her arms. "Someone wanted to meet you," she said with a knowing smile. Lauren took her baby gently, tiny fingers, steady heartbeat, soft eyes that mirrored her own. "Hey, little one," she whispered. "We made it." Grant leaned closer. "You've built cities, Lauren. But this is your masterpiece." Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't sad. They were full of gratitude, memory, and the quiet understanding that everything had led here. Outside, the snow fell heavier, just like that first night, the one when her world had shattered. But this time, she wasn't the woman waiting at a window. She was the woman looking forward. As she walked toward the window, holding her child, her reflection shimmered against the skyline. The woman who'd been humiliated, underestimated, and left behind. Yet now she stood taller than the towers themselves. Down on the street, reporters snapped photos through the glass, their headlines already writing themselves. Lauren Hayes celebrates 1 year of the Hayes Center. From scandal to savior. But she wasn't thinking about them. She was thinking about her mother. She whispered softly, almost to the snow outside. "We did it, Mom. Your city finally breathes again." Evelyn arrived just then, elegant as always, placing a small silver ornament into Lauren's hand. "Found this in the archives," she said. "Your mother's. She kept it every year." Lauren smiled, hanging it on the highest branch of the tree. "It's perfect." Nora stepped closer, laughing. "You know, last Christmas you sold your house. This Christmas, you own half the skyline." Lauren chuckled. "Funny how life works when you stop letting someone else write it for you." Grant took her hand. "So, what's next for the woman who has everything?" She looked out at the snow-covered city, her baby sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Not everything," she said, "but everything that matters." The clock struck midnight. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang. The city glittered beneath the snow, alive, eternal. Lauren turned toward the camera flashes, unbothered, smiling faintly, not for fame, but for closure. Because the woman who had once been betrayed on Christmas Eve had now rewritten the ending, and this time, it ended in light. The camera lights faded, the bells echoed, And Lauren Hayes, architect, mother, survivor, finally stepped into a world she had built herself. So, that's how the story ends. Lauren Hayes didn't just rebuild a city. She rebuilt herself. And if you're still here, watching until this moment, maybe something in her journey touched a quiet part of your heart too. Maybe it reminded you of a time you were broken, betrayed, or lost, but somehow you're still standing. You see, as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the obstacle is the way. Every storm that tried to destroy Lauren became the very force that shaped her strength. Life doesn't promise fairness, but it gives us the power to rise above what tried to silence us. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about walking through it with new eyes and refusing to let pain define your future. So tonight, as you sit here with me, maybe take a deep breath and remind yourself, you've survived everything you thought you couldn't, and that means you're already stronger than you realize. If this story reached you, even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because somewhere out there, another heart might need this reminder too. And who knows, maybe this is where your own rebuilding begins.